Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bourbon Bytes Whiskey Reviews with a Gaming Twist. I'm Clifton, and welcome to another Thursday night live stream. I'm so excited for this one. It's been a long time in the making, and I know you guys are excited too. Before we bring on our guests, of course, I want to say hello to everyone here hanging out pre-gaming with us in the chat. I saw Sugar Kitty was here earlier. Sugar Kitty is a Bite Club member, which I really appreciate that. That's my YouTube channel membership. Thank you so much, Sugar Kitty, for hanging out early. Of course, we have a whole posse over at Donnie's house. Or not Donnie's house. So Donnie, Mrs. Linux Cat, Bourbon Noob, Tiny Diamond, and Fred are all watching from their cabin. They are currently on vacation in Tennessee. They've rented a cabin. I really wish I could be there with them. But I imagine I'm on the big screen over there. So you guys feel free to, pull up your phones if you have any questions, send them into the stream. I know for sure a lot of you guys are excited for this one. So good to see y'all. Thank y'all for watching on your vacation. And of course, Fred's there with them. And then we have Zopher here. Zopher, good to see you. I was hanging out with Zopher over on Bill, the Whiskey Dicks live stream. By the way, Bill has started his live streams back up. So a lot of you guys watch Perry from This Is My Bourbon podcast. He goes on at 5 p.m. Pacific. Then Bill goes on at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then I go on. Wait, hold on. Yes, 7 p.m. Pacific. My mind started switching to Eastern, so I was getting very, very confused. But Brandon's here in the house as well. Whiskey Elon, I imagine that's some inside joke, I'm sure, from Perry's meetup. I don't get it, but good to see you. Swan is in the house. Patrick, of course. Whiskey Dick's here. Oh, there's Bill. Yeah, you guys make sure to watch him every Thursday right before my stream he goes on. So Swan says he's excited for this one. Yeah, everyone's so excited. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest for the evening. Please welcome to the show Jesse Parker from Doc Swinson's. Jesse, welcome.
Thanks, Clifton. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you on. So I was telling you a little bit before, but so I actually have had Doc Swinson's, like the whiskey, on the channel before. It was like a year ago. It was my first time trying it. You guys were gracious enough to send samples, and I literally fell in love with it after that live stream. I didn't know very much about the brand. I was just like, this alter ego, like the rye, was just my jam. And I've since bought 3 or 4 different bottles of it, and I just keep buying it. So it's a regular part of my whiskey collection here. So I'm so excited to have you on to tell us a little bit more. Like I said, I was kind of just going off of the website and stuff then, but it's really great to have you on. And like you said, you are the master blender there. So you're like, it's kind of like, I mean, I know you have a team and all, but like this is kind of your project. So tell us a little bit about starting the brand, and how did you come to get to this point?
Yeah, certainly. Well, first of all, thank you so much for supporting Doc Swinson's, especially buying multiple bottles. That's what I always like to hear, is coming back for more, especially because it changes so, through every iteration, every release we do. Doc Swinson's, yeah, it is kind of my baby. I do have a team, which are my best support system. It's a small team, though. I've got, there's 4 of us in the office that actually run the operations and figure out kind of what we want to do and how we want to do it. That includes like national sales, that's all the accounting, logistics, distribution, etc. And then as far as blending and everything goes, yep, that's me. And the brand kind of started without really the intention initially to do this. Our company, our parent company, actually does private label work. So that's kind of how we started in the industry, working on other people's labels. So I worked blending all sorts of different products, you name it. From anywhere from rums to spiked seltzers, the gamut. And it was a few years into that we came across some really great bourbon barrels, and we always wanted to get into brown spirits. We were mostly doing clear stuff, and we stuffed away some casks and started playing around with them, doing some little blends here and there. It was like 12 casks originally of some just 10-year-old MGP back in the day when you used to be able to find that kind of stuff. And
good luck these days.
yeah, it's yeah. You have it. Let me know. It's pretty hard. And we just kept playing around, and I started finishing in various casks, and just internally and releasing them more or less locally in the Washington market, seeing how the market really responded to it, which was pretty much little to none because we were only releasing a few barrels a year for the most part. And then, so we basically logged a bunch of experience, or I logged a bunch of experience blending different casks and finishing them and finding some really cool contacts through the other side of our company. And eventually we came across some 15-year bourbon. And we blended those casks together and released them around in 2020 for a very really reasonable price for a 15-year-old bourbon at the time. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah.
Compared to everybody else that kind of got similar juice.
Yeah, I was gonna say y'all were the first one that I saw. At least I saw in this. I'm in Southern California, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, y'all were the first one. I remember all the guys in my local group were going crazy trying to buy it when you guys came out with it, and then everyone else did it. But like the prices were like higher compared to y'all. So like I think we had the first that go with that.
Yeah, we actually ended up like in like blind competitions with most of the people who also got this, similar juice, similar barrel sets. We actually ended up beating most of them, which was kind of crazy. And we were, $100.
Well, you said you were blending it though, right? A lot of them were releasing as just kind of like a single barrel, just basically how they got it. You were actually blending different barrels from it.
Yeah, so I never did single barrels of it. It was all blends, usually around on the low end like 14 to 22 barrels, some up to 27 barrels as well. So it was all blended. We weren't really well set up for single barrels at the time either. So
gotcha.
Sometimes mixing them makes a better product in the grand scheme of things. And in the end, that's what we are. We're blenders. We're not distillers. So we really like to focus on what we think is great, which is us adding another, our own touch to the product in the end.
Yeah, well, absolutely, because a lot of the ones we're trying today, some of these are out, and there's also some that we're going to be trying at the end that are not yet out, but you guys are releasing very, very soon. So I'm really excited to get into these. Well, before I want to give a couple more shout outs to people showing up. Our friend Patrick and Heather, they are from Washington State, so they are local to you guys. They said Washington represent. I see Mrs. Independent Joe. So Joe and herself are on the road, just stopping in to say hi. Hey, thanks for y'all for stopping in. Tennessee here from Donna. You guys feel free to drop where you guys are from. Let us know in the chat so we know where everyone's at. Sugar Hitty says, lucky to have one local store with Doc Swinson's. Good products, good disclosure of their bottles. Yeah, and then you were talking about it earlier, like you kind of designed the labels, and I think y'all are really transparent about where you get the stuff from, and that's super interesting. I like that y'all do that.
Yeah, thank you. As much as I could share where it comes from and the process that I employ for each and every single one of our batches, I will. I mean, there's a few things that we don't because it gets like really down to the nitty gritty. Sure. That's mostly like how many days every single cask is rest and everything like that. So we kind of broad stroke that a little bit, but overall, yeah, we're as often as we can, we'll disclose where we get the juice.
Very cool. And then Bill says to make sure to hit the like button. Yeah, you guys, seriously, it does help out the channel. So while you're down there, and make sure if you're new here, make sure to subscribe as well. It really does help out. My goal is to get 4,000 by the end of the year. We'll see. we're getting up there, but I see a few other people here chiming in. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything. I saw one from our friend Swan. He said, you guys are creating a huge buzz in Kentucky. I had people coming into work begging for that 15-year release. Yeah, so Swan worked at Total Wine in Kentucky, and yeah, he gets lots of requests, but yeah, they were pretty excited for that one.
That's awesome. We heard that too. We're like, wait, Kentucky juice in the Pacific Northwest set back to Kentucky, and people are even our core line of products seems to get a bit of a buzz in Kentucky too, which we really appreciate being an outsider.
For sure. And then Patrick says, do you guys plan on having a public space? He'd love to make the drive up.
One day, yes. Currently, we're not set up to do it. We have to get a couple licensing adjustments in Washington State, and then build something out. Right now, it's industrial space, big warehouses, and that's about it. But if you happen to swing on by, you're always welcome to, drop us a line, and maybe we'll happen to be here to open the doors, kind of thing.
Yeah, because Patrick,
we don't have a public space.
He was actually asking me that a while back ago. Yeah. I was like, actually, I don't know if they do, because he's up there. Like I said, he's up there in Washington with you guys. So yeah, Patrick, you might need to just send him an email.
Yeah, please do.
So let's go ahead and I see a few. I just want to highlight this. Diana says we are getting our first store pick of Doc Swinson's when we get back home. Excited to try it. I haven't had any of the store picks, but I'm sure they're really great. Okay, well, I want to get something in my glass because, like I said, we have 5 samples here to get through.
We do.
So we're gonna start with not that one. I don't know why I put that one first. We're gonna start with the you said the bourbon, the triple cask bourbon.
Let's do the alter ego Solera method rye. So the rye finished.
Okay, sorry. I know we talked about this, and for some reason I got them out of order because I was talking.
They both say alter ego on the top. We realize our brand's somewhat confusing to people. Kind of like I was saying earlier before we got on was we've developed this entirely in-house, kind of as it's grown naturally. I mean, Doc Swinson's the brand itself started in 2017, just mostly on a whim because we like I was saying, we like to just blend juice. That was the whole point, is just figure out what we can do with that. And it was starting to get more popular, finished whiskeys. And we truly find it fascinating. I really do. I mean, that's why I'm in the business.
For sure. Well, speaking of that, like, let's talk a little bit about your journey? Because I mean, I know everyone else is like, oh, well, you're so young. Like, how did you get into this? You started in the industry at 21. Like, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to being the master blender of Doc Swinson's?
Sure, certainly. So I definitely had an affinity for all things delicious when I was a little kid. My parents were really into cooking. We brewed beer when I was a little kid. I had my own line of root beers, actually, which is quite humorous. We bottled them in like old Corona bottles. It looked real bad when I brought them to school.
That's awesome. Well, yeah.
But thanks to my mom. Old Grosh bottles. So did a lot of that. I made fruit liqueurs with my grandparents, and for like the holidays and whatnot when I was little, because we used to put them on ice cream. And also I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so everything I have has a little bit of a twist on it of such. So it's a little bit, something from my childhood. It reminds me of something that I really appreciated, or still do appreciate, of course. And when I was 17 or so, I decided to start studying distillation, because I wasn't doing any of that. It was all just brewing, right? And a little bit of liqueur making. And we always had to use, like store-bought liquor for that. And so I started just picking up books and basically just became obsessed with distillation technologies. And well, I mean, without saying it, I started making my own to some degree, here and there. And then when I was 21, I was going to university, and there was a distillery opening up down the road. And this would have been 2012 or so. And that was kind of all the new cool thing was craft distillation, right? And there was an opportunity, and I walked into this fruit distillery. They were just building it out, and I figured they would like hire somebody that knew a whole lot about distillation and brandy making, and I would be able to learn from them while still finishing up my degree. And basically what they did is they handed me the keys. I was the cheapest option because I was a college student. And they had these beautiful Vendome stills, and we had something like, I think it was just shy of like 3 million pounds of apples and pears to work with in a year, which is pretty excessive. And
it is Washington.
Yeah, it's true. We got a lot of that. And I started making fruit brandies and fruit vodkas. And then when I was 21, won the top ranked gin for the New York International Spirits Competition. So that's kind of when I realized I had a bit of a knack for this. Once again, basically all in white spirits, right? So nothing really aged. And when I was about 24, 25, I was actually thinking of getting out of the industry because I didn't see a whole lot of growth in what I was trying to do. From the craft side, to be totally honest with you, and I wanted to travel a lot more. And out of the blue, I was approached to start our parent company, which is Distiller's Way, and I was focusing on blending other people's products, putting their labels on it. And I said, well, heck, yeah, why not? This will give me a really good opportunity to go travel, taste some new stuff, learn from some of the best people in the industry. And that was kind of a big goal. I was really hungry for more knowledge, and I just couldn't get it where I was. And I'm not really from Kentucky or anything like that, so it's definitely a small tight knit group of people. So I could imagine breaking into it would be kind of difficult at the time. At least that's what I was thinking. So I figured, what the heck? I'll just make blends for other people and see where that takes me. And this is where it's taken us. And Doc Swinson's is our pretty much our biggest thing that we do. I mean, it's the one we're most focused on. It's the one that's truly ours. The four of us, and we have a bottling team of 3 people to help me move the liquid around. That's it. We're a teeny company.
Well, I mean, you guys have such a reach. I mean, I saw a question coming in from, I think it's Mamuka. It's 1977. Looking forward to trying it. Are you guys in the tri-state area? So New Jersey.
Yeah, I believe we are in. Yeah, I believe so. Yes, I know we're in New York and Connecticut. I'm pretty sure New Jersey as well. You can always check out our website, docswhiskey.com, and there's a find bottle finder. You can type in your zip code and it'll pop up all the relevant locations that should have it.
Oh, nice.
So, pretty convenient. You can also buy bottles on a shop on our website too. Special releases. And if you live in one of the states where we can ship to, you'll eventually get it.
Wow. So your journey, I mean, you said you started with the beer and then you went into like clear spirits like gin and liqueurs and like, wow. So what, I don't want to say like, what are you most passionate about, but what did you find yourself gravitating towards, throughout that journey? Were you gravitating towards like whiskeys, or were you kind of into more of the brandy stuff? I'm just curious, kind of like what you were drinking while you were making these other things.
Yeah. As I somewhere in my early to mid 20s, I really started gravitating towards more aged products, and it was actually originally rum that kind of got me involved into stuff that was aged for a long period of time, brown spirits, and then very quickly became whiskey, if you can imagine. And I definitely have a fair amount of the techniques that I employ are actually from the brandy industry.
Okay.
Cognac, Armagnac, Brandy de Jerez, and that's really where most of my harebrained ideas have spawned from is brandy. And I just adapted to American whiskeys primarily, which is something I haven't seen a whole lot of.
Yeah. Oh, actually, so I don't have too much experience with brandies, but I actually was down in I was not actually up Ventura Beach. They have Ventura Spirits there, and they do a couple of fruit brandies. They had a strawberry brandy, and I think they had a forget what the other one was, but it was my first time having like a fruit brandy like that. And it was, I mean, I've had like cognacs and stuff, but nothing that's actually like flavored, like made from the actual fruits and flavored. So it was really interesting. It was completely different than what I expected. And it wasn't like, I was worried it would be kind of overly sweet, but there's a lot of creativity in like the brandy world.
There is, and there's a ton of opportunity, I think, in the brandy world. It's just a matter of getting, I think, if you're local, if you're Americans to try it. I think it was always the hardest when I were in an apple brandy distillery. I was like, oh, actually, apple brandy is really wonderful. And then Calvados in specific also really kind of spawned my interest in aged spirits as well, because it's quite delicious, and almost nobody has ever really tried it here. Unless they have family back in Normandy or something.
I think at least here in Southern California, I think people are starting to come around to brandy. I think
absolutely.
I saw a question come and say like, what's your favorite Armagnac? I know a lot of my friends, I know a few people here are also really into Armagnac. Do you have any favorites that you like?
I don't particularly have a favorite Armagnac. No, that is still a little bit newer to me, to be totally honest with you. I haven't wandered far down the Armagnac path. It's something I'm working on with hopefully one of our distributors in New York, actually, PM Spirits, is to really understand more about Armagnac, because that's a future release of Doc Swinson's coming down the pike too. So if you have any great recommendations, I'm always willing to take them. Keep in mind, I'm only 31. I got a lot of drinking still to do under my belt.
Wow. So you're 31. So you're what, 91?
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
okay.
91.
I was 93. So it was same generation.
Right.
So,
yep.
Well, actually, a question I always ask people on my channel, because it's kind of a video game twist. What games did you play? Any video games growing up? Like, did any games like kind of shape your childhood? I feel like it'd probably be pretty similar to the ones that I played.
Yeah, I was really into. Pardon my use of the language. I haven't played video games a whole lot, but I really like God mode, like strategy style games. So stuff like as Empire Earth, Age of Empires. That was kind of more my thing. There's one that was called
There's Civilization that
I did play some Sid Meier's Civilization. I was obsessed with anything pirates as a kid, hence the rum thing, nice. I think. So anything I do with pirates, love Sid Meier's Pirates was genius. Totally underrated game, really cheesy.
I haven't played that. I know there's a lot nowadays too. There's some recent ones coming out that are like the simulator about like pirates.
Oh,
I can't think of the name. There's one that I've been seeing a lot on Twitch lately. I don't know the name of it. So they're coming back.
Yes, I might have to get back into video games, to be totally honest. There was one that I think the original Xbox had on it, and it was like Pirates of the Caribbean, and it totally I forget the name of the studio. It was a developer in Russia that totally like ripped off all the stuff from Disney and then claimed it wasn't at all, even though they also hired Keira Knightley to do the intro scene.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
And it came out only for a short period of time in the United States. It was genius. It's such a good game. And
I was going to say, Disney's so sue happy. I'm surprised they didn't get sued.
I don't think it stayed on American shelves for very long. And it was a genius, like open map pirate game. So there you go.
That's awesome. That's not an answer I've ever heard anyone say, and I love it. And
yeah,
that's really cool. Well, okay, let's talk about the whiskey, because we've been talking about so much other things. So this is the Solera rye.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about this release in particular? Like I said, this is the one that I've been loving.
Which okay. So we originally started dabbling in rye, and it's always been a blend of the 95% rye and 51% rye mash bills from MGP. So we've always run with that particular mash, or those two mash bills, and blend them together, which we call Blender's Cut rye, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then that originally was just subject to these old rum casks, primarily Trinidadian rum that we were working with a long time ago. And that's where the very first Ultra Ego rye finished in rum cask came from. And it's actually just kind of evolved over the last couple of years. And 2 years ago, we started doing it as a Solera. So we have this huge rack system in the back of our warehouse. And originally it actually kind of looked like this behind me. This actually represents the Solera, where it's a pyramid of barrels. And because of our access to other spirits from the other side of our company, we were working with quite a few rums at one time. So I would just blend the rums together just to see what I could make out of it, mostly for fun. And started aging them in a number of our ex-bourbon casks. And then we would take that rum out and put our blend of ryes in it. And then it would take on that characteristic. And eventually I started building up more and more of these casks, and it became such a almost daunting task to try every single barrel and move them all around based upon when they're ready. And I've always I fell in love with a lot of the way sherry's produced through Solera systems, which is where you have these different layers, just like this setup behind me. There's 4 layers here, and you take approximately 15 to 20% off the entire bottom rung of casks and blend that together and then bottle it. And then you replace that portion with the next set of barrels above it, and you move that down into the lower set. And you just replace that all the way to the very top, and you put your newer blend in the very top set of casks. It creates this giant fractional blending system, and ours currently has 164 casks in it. So the rye whiskey that you were drinking right now went through all 164 casks. And it's a proprietary blend of rum that we only use in-house. We don't sell it. We don't bottle it for anybody else or anything like that. It is really only made to produce this product at this point in time. That goes into our emptied bourbon cask for our other products that we're going to taste here in a minute.
Yeah, I think so. We were talking a little bit before the show. Like I love how rye takes on so many finishes, and I love that you guys are doing so much with it. I think rum cask and rye are just the perfect combination. I think that's why I've been buying so many bottles of this. It's just it's sweet but not too sweet. It has the richness, the thickness of like a molasses, kind of like a rum aspect to it. And I love 95.5 rye from MGP. It's, I think for the price, it's one of the best out there. But you guys are also, you said you're blending that with the 51% rye as well?
Yeah, correct. So I'm a huge rye fan. It was the whiskeys that really got me into whiskeys, to be honest, for ryes. I really like the spicy, fruity characteristics that you get, especially out of MGP's 95. But I also really love bourbon, and a lot of people don't like ryes. So the 51% rye is actually quite mesmerizing. It's a little bit more reminiscent of bourbon because you have a high corn content in it, of course. We thought it would be a really good idea to just blend the two together. And it's primarily the 95, but a small portion is the 51% in there. And being that it's also aged in our ex-bourbon barrels that were aging rum, you get a little bit more of a bourbon influence on it. So it's it's kind of like a gateway rye, I like to say. People who really like rye whiskeys tend to love it. And people who don't like rye whiskeys or won't even touch rye whiskeys have come to me and said, wow, this is amazing. This is great. Thank you so much. I didn't like ryes. In fact, I usually just give the bottles away, like at bourbon societies and whatnot. They're like, who wants this one? I don't want it.
Man, I love rye. So, but I came from bourbon and then I eventually got more into rye, but you said you were the other way around. So that's so interesting. I don't think I've heard of anyone starting in rye. How did that happen?
I've always been that way. I started in the darkest beers you could possibly drink as a kid. That's what my parents always said. If you can hold it up and can't see it through the light, then it's good. You can't see the light through the bottle, and it's a good beer or whatnot. So since then, now I've migrated to really classically people's beers, really light stuff. And then I started with really fairly rich red wines as well, then have just more recently moved towards the light side of those. So I think that just kind of goes to show that I started with ryes and have migrated almost more towards bourbons over time. Not more. I love them both very much. Right. So. I don't know. Rye just got me right off the get-go. And I think it's because it is. It's it is bold. It is out there and it's expressive. And I kind of like things that people don't always appreciate as much. There's something special about them. So,
like pirate games.
Like pirate games. I know, what a weird thing, huh?
No, that's awesome though. No, I really appreciate a good rye. Like you said, like it's spicy, it's bold, and especially when you're dealing with, somewhat younger product compared to like bourbon, I think rye can be fantastic at, just a couple years old. So I think
Yeah.
that's what's so interesting about rye for me, that it tastes so good, even maybe not fresh off the still, but less time than it takes to make a well-aged bourbon. And I really like that about it.
3-year-old rye could be epic. A 3-year-old bourbon, I could use a little more time in the cask. And that also kind of helped us from the get-go too, because the first part of the Solera was primarily made with 3 and barely 4-year-old rye. And it's been going, so most of it's almost around 6 years. In fact, most of the rye that's going into it now is about 6 years old. And of course, it's ever aging, right? We're not entering the Solera, so it's a infinity aging.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was something that really helped us out at the beginning too. And cash flow is a lot tighter. It's hard to get 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old barrels of bourbon.
For sure.
Rye's good, like you said, at 3, 4 years old.
Yeah. So Food, Wine, and Whiskey says Jesse is doing some really good things with this.
Yay!
I agree very much. And Swan says, I'm back. Just ordered some Doc Swinsons for pickup at work. So I told you there's some fans here that are watching. I know
that's awesome.
The group that's watching on in their cabin in Tennessee on vacation. I know like half of them like love Doc Swinsons. They always talk about it. So
that's awesome. Thank you so much. This is kind of fun. Like I think one of the hardest things that I've experienced so far is one, not being primarily from the industry in the first place, right? I mean, this has kind of been my own journey, my own path, and making these kind of oddball products and blends, and seeing how people react to them. And usually I don't start hearing that for like 9 months. So I'm like, well, is this good? Do people actually like this blend? Is this? This is really nice to hear the feedback and see that I actually have some fans, and which I think is growing. I think we actually cleaned up this year's awards, so that was kind of nice.
That's awesome. I know you guys entered. So for my podcast that I'm putting out tomorrow, by the way, if you guys don't know, I also do a podcast. I reviewed the Kiona Cask bourbon?
Yeah, the Kiona Cask. That was one of them that took. Was it the best in category finished whiskey, I think, and then was it platinum with San Francisco this year?
Oh, so I was wondering if the results were announced, because I saw that you guys were finalists. So I didn't know if like the awards were announced.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, I don't really quite remember. I might be making that up a little bit, so maybe don't be quiet. I don't actually get that information for the record. Usually people tell me later down the road. We have a guy that kind of handles that.
Sure. So. I was just going to say, so if you guys are curious, the experimental casks we're going to be trying later tonight are rye casks or rye whiskeys. But if you guys are curious about one of a really great bourbons that they did that was finished in Cabernet cask, listen to tomorrow's podcast. Sorry, I just had to do that little plug there. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next one, shall we? What are we moving to next?
So we're going to go to the Blender's Cut Bourbon. This is straight bourbon whiskey, 2 different MGP mash bills. Both high ryes, 21% rye and a 36% rye mash bill on that bourbon. And it's aged a minimum of 5 years, mostly airing around 6 years right now. Not quite for the whole batch.
Gotcha. And I see you still have no rush finishing that. I see you still have that one go, or you can chug it. There you go.
Oh, no, I was like, oh.
It's the lowest proof one I think we're having tonight, so easy to do.
Yes, yeah. The rye is 95 proof, which is the lowest proof of anything we offer at this point in time. I doubt we'll get much lower. We don't chill filter or anything like that, so we want to maintain really nice bottle clarity. And when you're over 94 proof in the bottle, you really don't have a problem with any of those lipids bonding together. So you don't get the cloud.
Sure. Yeah. So Reg says, quick hello before I hit the sheets. I'll catch up tomorrow on the replay. Salute all. Don't forget to smash the like button. Thank you so much. And anyone watching the replay, feel free to leave a comment below what your favorite Doc Swinson's is, or if you haven't had it, let us know what state you're in so they can work on getting it to you, or order it from their website. And then Fred says everyone in the cabin is a big fan of Doc Swinson's. Yeah, I thought so. Cheers. So I know you guys wanted to tune in. And then Bourbon, who actually was the one that sent me the Kiona Cask, he said it's his favorite bottle at the moment. Wow, that's a big. He's very experienced with whiskey, so I'm glad to hear that, and that's why he sent it to me, because he's so excited about it.
That's pretty cool. Well, I'll have to make more. I think there was only 400 bottles or so I made of the Kiona.
Yeah, because it said it was only 2 casks that you guys used. Two
casks. Actually, they were one of the coolest wineries I've done anything with. I'll literally drive. I'll chat with them, and then I'll drive down there. They'll dump the barrel. I'll throw it in the back of a truck. And this is opposite corners of Washington, by the way. I'm right by Vancouver, Canada, on the water, and they're down in the Red Mountain area, wine country of Washington, and it's a good like 4.5 hour drive or so. I'll drive back in the middle of the night, and I'll have my bourbon ready to put right in the casks.
Wow, so like wet casks.
Yeah, super wet casks, no spoilage bacteria, nothing like that, no sulfuring. I won't do anything like that. I'm really a stickler about it. So
everyone's excited. They're excited about the more Kiona cast. Fred says yes. And Heather says we support that decision.
Woo, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's funny. We were so excited to release it that we basically sold all the bottles. And I usually keep a library of everything here, and I only had like 3 or 4 bottles of the library, which some of them went to competition, some of them did not. And we actually had to, as a team, had to go buy bottles back from like Total Wine and More in our local, local grocery stores.
Yeah, just need to make more next time.
yeah. It's
awesome.
coming.
Well,
Might take 2 more years.
Okay, yeah. So you told us a little bit about the Blender's Cut bourbon, but so the name Blender's Cut, like what was you said the rye is also going to be under that name as well? I didn't realize that. Yeah,
so this is where our brand gets really confusing, because yours truly designed the label. We kind of have like subsections. It's Doc Swinson's, then we have Alter Ego, which is part of our core line, and then Blender's Cut, which is part of our core line. And Alter Ego is the two that the first one we just tried, the rye finished in rum cask Soleras. And then we have another one which we'll try next after the Blender's Cut. And it's the triple cask, and that's a bourbon finished in 3 different casks and blended together. And these are products that we primarily try to keep on the shelf as often as possible. So once again, our core line, and that does include the Blender's Cut. Currently, it's a straight bourbon blended 2 different mash bills that we sell under Blender's Cut, and the name actually is 3621 because that's the 2 mash bills. So it's pretty obvious. We just went with it, and then we will release a rye edition probably in fall. We're not quite sure yet, and that will be actually the base spirit that's used for the Solera method rye finish and rum casks. So,
gotcha. So the Blender's Cut is the non-finished, basically, still blended but non-finished.
Yes, in fact, most of our or in this case, Alter Ego is what Alter Ego triple cask bourbon finished in cognac and sherry casks is what happens after we do the finishing, of course, and this is where it starts. It all starts in Blender's Cut. And the reason why we really wanted to release this was because a lot of people we hear, in the in Reddit and whatnot, people saying, "Oh, the only reason why you'd finish something is because the whiskey was terrible in the first place," or whatnot. And it's like, well, that wasn't true. We're not trying to like mask up a bunch of bad whiskey. That's not our game here. That's not great business practice either. And so we want to showcase that the juice we're working with in the first place is actually really good. So that's why we released Blender's Cut, was to show you that our straight bourbon actually kicks butt. And this is what we can do with it.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. I just put it here. I just want to get his first super chat of the night. I'm struggling with your name. Mamuka 1977. Gentlemen, you are great, but this drum is for the ladies. Oh, well, yes. Shout out to all of our whiskey women here in the chat. I see quite a few of you guys in the chat. So good to see y'all supporting the channel. So I'm looking forward to trying this Blender's Cut. Cheers.
Certainly. Cheers. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I mean, I love Indiana bourbon and rye, obviously. And I think all of the ones that I've tried that have hit that 5-year, 6-year age statement, I think have all been really rich and really like bold. And I think this is that as well. So you of course it's got the 5-year age statement, but is there maybe some older ones blended in there as well?
Maximum would be 6 years right now at the oldest. So we're really quite in that zone. We're a little too small of a company to have had like a bunch of tenure of something else. Like a lot of everybody out there. We're not quite at that level yet. Maybe that was definitely part of the dream.
Yeah, this is a solid. And the price of this one is about, I mean, I know you're in Washington, so like prices are probably $300.
Everything's expensive.
but it typically, like, what does this typically go for?
So what I usually see it for is around $55 a bottle. I imagine it's a little bit less in California and every state. I have no idea, to be honest with you. We're pretty consistent about pricing on our end, but liquor taxes is the biggest issue. And then, of course, the retailer kind of decides what that sticker price is at the end too.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds about right for what I get it for. And like you said, I'm from South Carolina, so everything was more expensive there as well. But California, actually, I'm very fortunate. My rent's ridiculously high, but my liquor prices are low.
Trades,
so,
right?
Well, man, I had something that I was going to mention that it was going off of what you just said. I just completely got sidetracked by that conversation. Oh, I remembered it now. Sorry. So we know Washington State, the liquor taxes are a bit crazy. What about for you guys when you guys are actually making it? Is it similarly like expensive because you guys are based in Washington?
Yeah, I mean, if we were based in Kentucky or Tennessee or somewhere near, or Indiana where the juice is actually made, yeah, I guess freight would really help.
Yeah.
But honestly, we love it here. We're from here. We're a fairly outdoorsy kind of group of people, and we have a ton of that up here: mountains, snow. You get the water, everything like that. So we really want to stick around up here. Plus, in addition, our climate, it was specifically where we are on the West Coast here, is actually very similar to like Speyside, Scotland, which is pretty neat. So because we're doing aging on our barrels in the Midwest, we still get a very classic rye or classic bourbon characteristic. But then we do our secondary portion of our aging here in the Pacific Northwest, and it's a lot more mellow, right? We don't have huge temperature fluctuations. It's very humid here. And we truly believe that it does affect the whiskey very positively, especially when it comes to finishing. Because really we want to focus on the bourbon or the whiskey itself. That's kind of where Doc Swinson's, we're battling uphill even more so, I feel like, in the finished whiskey world, because our take on it was subtly influence our whiskey, not consume it by the finishing casks. Which I know has been kind of fascinating, because we've had people like, well, I don't, in triple cask, I don't taste the cognac. And I'm like, that's not really the intention. It's like seasoning a really good piece of steak, good meat, right? Or something like that. You want to start with the best ingredients that you can, and then still let them shine in the end. And that's our goal. And in the end, we make whiskey, not cognac, not
right,
sherry or anything like that. So we just want to influence or layer in specific flavor profiles that we think would benefit our whiskeys.
Yeah, and Sugar Kitty makes a great point. They said the great thing with Doc Swinson's is that if you want to know what it's like without the finish, and make sure it's good on its own, you'd buy the blender's cut. And yeah, absolutely. And this is a really solid base bourbon here. So I'm really excited. We're about to move on to the triple cask, which you said uses the same juice, but with some really interesting finishes. So I'm going to go ahead and
thank you, Sugar Kitty.
Yeah,
totally true.
I saw a couple other questions. Mark, we mentioned this a little bit earlier in the stream, but he says that they would like to. That's definitely a goal of theirs to get something opened up. Ferndale, is that where you guys are? Is that?
Yeah, Ferndale, Washington. It's Bellingham. Basically, we're just north of it. We're arguably closer to Vancouver, Canada than we are Seattle.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a lot of people are really interested in like you guys having a tasting room. I know I definitely would go if I was heading up that way.
We'll have to, yeah. Well, it'll happen. I swear, it'll happen one day. We've actually got a lot of like people be like, "Please do it," and it's been on the board for discussion for quite some time now, and maybe within a year. Maybe, I don't know yet.
Okay, that sounds promising. Well, before we get into this one, we do have some questions about, speaking of like the future. Swan says, would you guys ever do any beer collaborations or American single malts? That's interesting. Yeah. I know there's a few American single malts based up in Washington as well.
Yeah, we've got some great ones. Humorously enough, one of them was Copperworks Distilling. Jason Parker. We have the same last name, so I always joke. First time I met him, I'm like, "Hey, I'm your unknown whiskey child. Like, you don't know this." It was kind of a joke. It was 8-10 years ago. And then I know a lot of people have been really talking about Westford lately. They'll make really wonderful single malts and American single malts, and for the near future, not yet. One day, yes, I would love to do some collaborations, whether it's barrel finishes or take an opportunity to blend some American single malt with either Doc Swinson's, or let them to have trust me to take run a take on what I think American single malt could potentially be too for finishing. Yeah, I think there's a world of possibilities out there, and we'd like to explore them.
Definitely. I see a few more questions, but let's hold off for 1 second on the questions. Let's get into this triple cask. So you said this is PX sherry, Oloroso sherry, and cognac. How did you come up with that blend or that choice of casks?
Well, so it originally started with just Oloroso. About 5 years ago, I got my hands on a bunch of Oloroso butts. So they're 500-liter casks, some that were all used in Solera systems in Spain. And I really like Oloroso. I think it can be somewhat underappreciated sometimes. but it adds a really beautiful citrusy and nutty characteristic to the bourbon that just is I don't know, I think it's totally stunning. And eventually evolved to add some Pedro Jimenez in it because I got the chance to buy some Pedro Jimenez butts from the same group, and I was like, okay, why not? These would be great. So of course, naturally, we were going to blend them too. And each iteration of Docks that has come out, it started with just Oloroso, then it was a blend of Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez, and then our accountant, our CFO, Chris, he's like, well, cognac. I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea, of course. And we're not the first people to do it by any means either. I know there's a couple other people out there. I mean, Magnus is like the one that really pioneered their triple cask. And our goal wasn't to copy it. We make a very different kind of triple cask. They don't taste at all alike. So this is just our take on I think 3 things that really complement each other. So much so that we recently released, back in fall, I should say, released an exploratory cask line, which is the other side of Doc Swinson's, which is we release unique finishes. We may never do them again. We might do them at some point in time. We might start blending them together. We have no idea. We're just, we have an idea, but we don't really disclose it until we release it. And back in the fall, I released the Mind, Body, and Spirit. So L'Esprit, La Mente, and El Cuerpo, named so respectively for the regions of the world where the product comes from in the language, right? And that was to represent the 3 individual pieces that were used to make triple casks. So you can actually try them all out of the casks by getting the Mind, Body, and Spirit release, which we'll do again. I think they're mostly sold out. If you're lucky to find one, you should definitely pick one up.
Definitely. Question about the cask for this release. Fred says, are the butts European oak or Spanish?
Actually, a lot of them are American oak. To be totally honest, some are Spanish, but that's pretty. I don't find those as often, and sometimes I don't even get the provenance of the casks. It does happen occasionally too. So I'll usually find out after a few months, though. They're pretty prominent in certain notes.
Wow. So this one's, I think it's, like you said, a lot more subtle. Like it's not as like, you can't be like, oh, that's obviously this cask. I think this one it's lower proof, right? What's the proof?
95.8.
Okay.
And where's the blender's cut? I don't know if we mentioned, but that was 115 proof. So that is cask strength. We blend it to 115 proof, which is something that I don't know if anybody else does without an addition of water beyond maybe like a half a gallon just to get it to legal strength, if that at all. And that's a pretty complex system to do, for the record. Blend to a proof. And triple cask, it's 95.8. We want it still a little bit more approachable for most people. We think it's a really great whiskey, whether you're a connoisseur or whether you're just getting into bourbons.
Yeah, I think I was going to ask you, like, how did you decide on that? But you said it's kind of meant to be kind of like I don't want to say entry level. Entry level is not the right word, but like like an easy way versus the cask strength blender's cut like we just tried. Like I think it still has a lot of the body that I think that one had, because again, it's that base MGP 5-year juice, which is great, but I think it does have a nice interesting like sweetness that I think maybe the the PX cask, just a guess, would be implementing that. But I think it has an extra layer of complexity that it doesn't need that higher proof, at least in my opinion.
No, and it doesn't. Actually, we're pretty with certain products, and every single one of our releases, by the way, or every single one of our line products is processed a little bit differently. So they all have some unique twist on them that I've made up or read about over the years and manipulated them for American whiskeys. And when it comes to proofing these and finding the right bottle strength for them, it actually takes us several weeks usually to pick one. Where we'll make bench samples ranging from usually the low end. I have a pretty good instinct for it, if the low end being around 93 proof, 94 proof, all the way up to about 106, 107. And then we start narrowing it down as a team, all 4 of us. And we'll just go back and forth, try, and then slowly narrow them out. And then we'll bust it down into, fractions, tenths of a proof. And then pick the one that we think actually represents the best combination of approachability, depthness and boldness and flavor, and still represent really great bourbon qualities. So
Gotcha.
It does take us a long time. That's how we actually pick our proof. We don't just be like, throw it at a dartboard, go.
Well, I was gonna say, especially coming in at 95.8, like it's like a very specific.
Yeah,
so, some companies will do like the number has some significance, like that 95.8 is like the year they started. I mean, not that one obviously. But,
sure.
So I've seen similar things like that. So it's interesting that you guys kind of do like a little, A/B comparison with the different proofs.
Yep. Our goal is really to put our mark on it and take great whiskey or good whiskey and make it better is what we always like. That's our marketing pitch, right? And we truly stand by that. I mean, there are times where we don't release a product because we don't think it's quite right, which is one of the ones we're going to try here in a little bit. Actually, we postponed it because it wasn't quite where we wanted to. So we held it away from everybody, and everybody started screaming at us for it. They're like, "Where is it?" Like, don't worry, it will come out.
Yeah. Well, you ready to move into that one? Because I'm really curious to try that one. So again, sorry, I always have two Glens, so I can go back and forth.
No, it's all right. I'm just I get chatty and then I don't really.
No, it's hey, these guys are loving it. So while we're pouring that one, maybe you can tell us a little bit. Heather's asking, how did you come up with the name Doc Swinson? And then Fred says, MD or PhD? So yeah, who was Doc Swinson?
Okay, so that's great.
Is that a long story?
It's kind of a long story.
Okay.
Doc Swinson is none of us. It's none of our grandpappies or anything like that. Let me tell you. No, it was so Doc Swinson was kind of we needed a name, honestly.
Okay.
And we really liked the whole like Prohibition era kind of stuff that was really popular 5-6 years ago when I first designed the first label, which kind of ripped off of a prescription label from back in the day. Everything was a little bit doctor this, doctor that.
Right.
And Doc Swinson's is a nickname for a fairly prominent historical member of Seattle, actually. But once again, we don't really have a big tie to it. We don't use that as our story. We're not saying this person did this back in the day. We just liked the name and their story was great.
You mean it wasn't his secret recipe that he had his great grandfather?
If it was, it was reincarnated into me. I don't know.
There we go. I like that.
That's the only thing I can think of. We also, what I usually like to tell people is Doc Swinson's is a culmination of our four brains mashed together, and this is what kind of chaos will come out of it. It's kind of more of a play off the whole mad scientists, from back in the day kind of theme going on, a little Frankenstein stuff.
Perfect segue into this next one.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's really where it came from. And Doc Swinson's just kind of stuck, so we stuck with it, to be honest. It didn't really have a major historic reference, other than the guy was actually pretty cool. So if you feel like doing a little digging, go for it, and it'll pop up pretty easily, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, this is the one we've been teasing all night. This is the Funky Drummer. So you mentioned a little bit earlier, people have been wanting this one. Can you tell us a little bit, how this came to be and why are people so excited for it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, ryes are great whiskeys to work with as far as finishing goes. They tend to adapt to whatever the finishing cask is incredibly well. And naturally, rum and rye are just beautiful complements. There's lots of them. There's quite a few of them in the industry, especially now that you can find on the shelves. Obviously the most famous being originally Angel's Envy, right? I mean,
sure.
That's the one that got everybody there at the first place. And ours is completely different.
Oh, yeah. 100% agree. And I have a preference for spectrum
here.
Yours is so much better. I think Angel's, to me, Angel's Envy is too sweet. And it's it has its place. It's a dessert whiskey. A lot of people do really like it. But I like how spicy the Solera one that you guys make way better, personally.
Well, thank you. I mean, I obviously do too. It's one you could just kick around and drink kind of all night, which is really nice. It's not overwhelming on the palate, and it just tastes really darn good. So we thought, okay, so the Solera method, for the record, it's Trinidad. The rums come from Trinidad, St. Croix, Venezuela, and Jamaica. It's a blend of those four different rums that are actually aged in both American bourbon barrels, sherry casks, which is kind of cool, for the record. So we get some sherry influence in there. It's really minor, though. And we thought, okay, well, what's the funkiest thing out there as far as rums goes? Well, it's Jamaican, right? We all know that. Right. Those of you who drink rum, Jamaican rum is so far-fetched and delicious and out there and wild. And we wanted to release another rum that was finished, or another rye that was finished in rum casks, but we didn't want it to compete with Solera method because they're different products. And of course, naturally, you just go to the strangest thing, and that's Jamaican rum. We're also big rum heads here, for the record, if you haven't noticed already. So we did an exclusive blend. It's still a blend of the two different mash bills, the 51 and 95% rye from MGP. It's actually diluted down slightly first with some water. It actually makes it a little bit more mellow, and that water acts as a great solvent for the Jamaican rum. And then it's put into the Jamaican rum casks, and these casks were primarily used for upwards of 20 years, over and over again. And then we age them for between 4 and 8 months. So the reason why I'm always like all over the place with my aging is because I actually pick the barrels by hand when I think they represent, that particular barrel represents what I'm looking for the most. And then we blend it on top. We'll say, okay, here's this barrel. These 3 are going today. A couple months, these 3 are better, and add it.
Gotcha.
So I don't just like slap a time on everything and pull it when it's ready, or pull it when that time pops up. I actually pull all the casks when I believe they're arguably what I believe is at their best, and I try and improve that from time to time too. So it's a learning thing for me too.
So this one comes in at 106.4 proof. This particular release of it. I'm excited, but I'm also like, so I'm sort of new to rum. I tend to stick towards like Barbados, like sort of the easier to drink rums. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Foursquare because they do the cask and stuff that I love with bourbon. Jamaican, I'm coming around to. I'm still a little hesitant. However, I have had some other whiskeys that were finished in Jamaican rum casks, and I have enjoyed those. So I'm excited to try this one.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, no, cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Oh wow. Yeah, the ones that I'd had before were not rye whiskeys that were finished in it. But like we said earlier, man, that's really good. Like it doesn't have, it has like a little bit of the funkiness with the Jamaican, but not the bad part. Well, what I consider the bad part.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are pretty turned off by Jamaica. I mean, people who like it love it. It's like peated Scotch.
Yeah, well, I had some guys in my local whiskey group that just like love like the funkiest Jamaican rum. I tried one. They had one time. I literally like I've never spit anything out because I'm like, I'll drink anything, but like that one was really close. However, this doesn't have that like meaty kind of funk. It has a little bit more of like I don't want to say like, I don't know what do you get out of Jamaican rum? I don't know the words because I don't have much experience with it. What do you think comes out in this whiskey that's on the Jamaican rum?
So for me in particular, with this rye, the Funky Jumper rye, it's incredibly fruity. It's like passion fruit actually is what I get a ton of. And then of course classic pears and apples, which is actually really wild. So it's a very fruity whiskey in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna say to me it does go like a bit like tropical fruit kind of in a way, like almost like I don't want to say just pineapple, but it's more of like a roasted pineapple kind of, like it has a little bit of that char as well. And I think pear is spot on. I get pear absolutely with this one too. Like I said, it's the fruity, the more bright notes of Jamaican rum and not necessarily the darker savory. There's a little bit of like, I do want to say like kind of like a brininess, maybe like a saltiness a bit there. But man, totally different direction than the one we were trying earlier. Even though that does have some of that in here. This one though it's definitely taking on a lot more of the rum cask than I think that one was.
Absolutely. No, it really is. And this is where we're going to go a little more wild.
Oh yeah.
and then this Solera method, I mean, the amount of rum, the amount of Jamaican rum that's used in that blend is pretty minor. It's less than 5% or so. This is just straight up Jamaican rum. And then these are quite fresh casks as well. When I get them, oftentimes I could empty out a little bit of Jamaican rum for myself.
Nice.
Which is great.
Well, I was gonna say, because you said you're a rum drinker. Like, what rum do you typically gravitate towards? Just when you're drinking rum itself?
Honestly, I'm a contextual drinker, so it depends on what I'm doing and what time of day it is, etc. What I'm gonna pick for just something that anybody could buy anywhere. So like my go-to is more often than not is Flor de Caña.
Okay. I haven't had it, but I see it everywhere. Yeah, it's
like inexpensive. They're 7 years wonderful. They're 12 years great. Brugal is wonderful as well. If you want something a little bit heavier, a little bit more oak on it. As far as their age stuff, and then I have a real affinity for not only Jamaican rums, but I really like Venezuelan and Colombian rums, in particular Venezuelan rums a lot. They exude a lot of those really, well, some of them are really heavy, like intense molasses. They're very old, 20 plus 30 years, 30 years up in the Solera systems, etc. They can be very sweet too. But younger ones actually, which is what I use in the Solera method blend, have these really, really bright, beautiful sugarcane notes to it, and citrusy notes that I really like. And you don't find that very often in the U.S. At least the younger, I feel like, Venezuelan rums. At least I don't.
Yeah, I have no experience with those, but that's good to know because, like I said, I do like dabble in rum every now and then, and like I think I need to branch out. I think, and see Fred here, so he's asking, what do you think of Rum Fire? Have you tried Rum Fire?
No, I'm familiar with the brand. And I have yet to try it.
Fred made me buy a bottle. It was one of the first. I think it's Jamaican. It was like one of the first crazy ones.
It's wild.
I was like, Fred, what are you making me drink? What is this? But I have used it in cocktails though. I do. I love it in cocktails. It actually works. It works well. I just drinking that one neat is just like gasoline for me. I can't do it. But very cool. Well, I do like that. Even though, Jamaican rum's not necessarily my jam, this takes on the best characteristics of it. Like you said, that fruitiness, like to me, like I said, the pear stood out. But man, that's going to be a really awesome release. Now, is that going to be sort of, I know it's part of the exploratory cask. Is it going to be as limited as maybe like the Kiona cask we were talking about a bit earlier?
It won't be quite as limited. We're producing this round we're going to do it a couple times. We think this is going to be a real winner anyways. And we really enjoy it. So we'll definitely make it. We actually have barrels already aging for it for the next round in the fall. But this particular release should be around 1,200 or so bottles. So, about 3x the Kiona. Okay. And believe me, we actually haven't figured out where it's going yet. So as far as what states are going to get it, we try and pick regions throughout the United States to distribute our limited release products, and then we swap them out later usually. So if somebody gets this set this time, we'll swap them next time we try it. Gotcha. But that's really up to my head of sales, Steve.
Very cool. Well, yeah, and there's a lot of hype for this one. I know a lot of people were asking me about it before, so I'm so glad I got a chance to try it. And I know those of you that are excited for it, you definitely want to pick up a bottle because this is definitely the name's fitting. Funky Drummer, I love it.
Yeah, Funky Drummer. I mean, that's was it James Brown's Drummer, right? That's where the whole ode comes from, and it is funky. Yeah, it's pretty wild. And do keep in mind, if you aren't in a place that we're going to release it, the docswhiskey.com has a bottle shop, and we usually try and keep a few cases back to sell online as well. So if you're trying to hunt it down and you can't find it, check it out there.
Oh, that's a great tip, though. It's for sure, especially people that are in regions that maybe it's available but not as easy to get. So you guys make sure to. I put the link is actually down in the description below if you guys are curious after the stream to go check their site and look at their bottle finder, which you mentioned earlier, to see where you can get it in your area. You guys can definitely do that. But before we go, we got one more whiskey to drink here. Another one that I'm super, super excited for. So we just had one of the exploratory casks. This one's another one. This is also a rye whiskey, but this one is finished in Scotch quarter casks. Yeah. So this one's called Smoke on Water. It's 114.2 proof. Can you tell us a little bit about this one? Because I am so intrigued by this.
Yeah, this one I think is gonna be interesting. I was on a little bourbon group a while back, and they tried this one. They're like, if you can get people to buy the bottle off or grab the bottle off the shelf, they're gonna love it. So hopefully that doesn't spoil it. Okay. This is truly the harebrained side of things. So I really like smoky things. Mm-hmm, me too. I think they're absolutely wonderful. They're kind of like the Jamaican rums. They fall into that category, like I said earlier. Mm-hmm. As far as there's people who absolutely adore them, and the majority of people think it's terrible. And if you ever look at peated Scotch, just reviews in general, like on a liquor store, like a Total Wine or something like that, it's always like 5-star and 1-star, and it's hilarious going back and forth.
Really, I've never. That sounds funny. I've never looked at reviews of that because, like, you imagine like someone that just knows whiskey, right? And they get something peated, and they're like, "What?" I mean, I have a story. I've kind of told this on the channel before, but when I moved out here to Southern California, I met up with the local whiskey group, and we met up at this guy's house, and most of them are big like peated Scotch fans. Which to me, I was the bourbon guy at first, so like I had no experience with it. So they were like, "Oh, try this, Clifton." It was an Octomore. And not gonna lie, I kind of loved it. I was like, I've never had anything like this before. It's my first time trying anything peated, and ever since then, I love peated Scotch. Honestly, if I want to drink a Scotch, I would prefer it to be peated over, like some of the Speysides and some of the Highland stuff. I mean, I think the Islay Scotch is incredible, so that's why I'm very, very excited for this one.
That's awesome. My first try of a peated Scotch was actually and this is going to sound like almost sacrilegious to whiskey people. It was in a malt milkshake.
Wait, really?
I kid you not. I was 21 and I was at this like show, this whiskey show or something like that, and this lady was like whipping up these malt milkshakes. They were opening a malt shop that you put booze in them, and they're like, seriously, you got to try this. And I just tried it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is delicious. This is the first one I ever had. I mean, my family didn't do weren't Scotch drinkers.
Right.
And then from there on out, I'm like, what is this Scotch? I want to try this Scotch. And then just kind of grew from there. So the more peat reek you can put in the Scotch, I'm kind of in love with it.
Hold on, now I'm stuck on the milkshake. Was it a peated Scotch milkshake?
Yes, it was a peated Scotch milkshake. In fact,
How was
I'm pretty
that?
sure it was
So it was like it just sounds crazy to me. I mean, I'm sure it was delicious. But
it was. I mean, the chocolate works really. In fact, I know peated Scotch cookies are a thing. Like chocolate chip cookies you can make. They're really tasty.
I am fascinated. I'm going to seek these out because I want both because they both sound so interesting. Okay, well back to the whiskey to the whiskey. I was like, that's still whiskey, but back to the smoke on water. So you guys use some quarter casks from it says Scotch. Do you disclose like where you guys actually get it from?
I've asked. No, I don't get that. We're not that cool yet.
Okay, so,
maybe.
Let me say if it's an Islay cask. Is it an Islay cask?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is an Islay cask. Absolutely. Pardon. Yes. And if you just type in like Scotch quarter cask, there's not too many people that use quarter casks.
Okay. So, yeah, that tells me what I need to know.
Tells you a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah, and they honestly we only did 4 casks. It's a really small release because this was truly an experiment that I wasn't sure if it was going to go the direction I wanted it to. So I was kind of shooting a little bit more in the dark here. But it hit me like right in the gut, and I was like, wait, rye and smoke. I think that's going to be a gorgeous blend. And it made me nervous because we're a relatively small company and we're processing, we're not processing thousands of barrels per year, for example. So I have to be kind of careful how I use my whiskey. And these 4 casks within a day, I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to be over smoked. There's going to be too smoky. It's going to be iodine. People are going to hate it. And I tried and I was like, wow, this is kind of mild. This is actually kind of nice.
I've just been smelling it so far, and wow, I love that nose. It has those elements, those smoky elements, but it also has maybe I'm just still thinking about the milkshake, but it has like a milk chocolate note on it.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely has a chocolatey note on it, and it's on the nose. It's more of a subtle smoke. It's not like pungent or in your face. It's almost like wet smoke, like after a fire the next day kind of thing in the forest. And there's 2 iterations of it that I really want to work on. This is one of them. The other one's a little bit different. But it's actually fairly fruit forward, if you don't mind me saying, before you.
I just took my first sip. This is not what I expected, but in a very, very good way. Mm-hmm. So I will say I have had, there's another distillery that does a bunch of single barrel, different cask finishings based out of Utah. And they had a similar thing. It was a rye whiskey finished in a Scotch cask. And that one was so subtle. This isn't subtle. This is big. This is really intense. Not necessarily overwhelmingly smoky, but man, that has so much flavor. Wow. I think this is my favorite so far. I'm not just saying that. This is great. I love it.
I'm glad to hear it. This is how I would describe a truly chewy whiskey. I mean, it's chewy.
Right.
It sticks around in a really nice way, and it's not overwhelming. Like you said, it's not, the smoke isn't overwhelming by any means. It's not super iodine. It's actually got some really great balance going on it, and you can still taste the rye characteristics.
But I was gonna almost say, like, if I was blinded with this, would I know it's even a rye whiskey? I honestly don't know if I would think that. It's just a unique category on its own. It has that sweetness, the spiciness from the rye, but that cask you're using from the how long was it finished in that? Because I feel like it's been aged entirely in that cask. That's crazy.
So it was 5 years in standard barrels, American barrels. And then approximately, what do we hit? 7 to 8 months, depending on the cask, but out of all 4. So yeah, about 8 months or so.
Yeah, going back into it, I get more of the rye on it. I think I was so surprised by how much I was getting from that cask at first. That's great.
I think it's chewy and it takes time. This is one you just want to like hang with for a while, and it just unfolds and unfolds and unfolds and unfolds.
Oh man! And in a completely unrelated note, I've done a review on a whiskey, Lefroy Quarter Cask that I absolutely loved, and for some reason it's sort of reminiscent of that. But man, this is great. Just had to say that.
No, yeah, absolutely. This was a little bit surprising to me too. I thought it would be far more, smoke forward, how you would almost expect it to be, and it's not. And it's actually been. Dozens of people so far have tried it more internally, close friends kind of thing, and most of them don't like smoked or Scotch at all, to be honest.
Mhm.
And so far, this has been one of the crowd favorites, like across the board. I had one guy the other day that I sent some samples to, and he was like, I almost gave these away because I don't like this stuff at all. And we tried it, on his podcast, and he was like, wait a second. I rescind. I'm not giving these away. So thank you for this is the affirmation I was looking for on this one, because this was kind of a harebrained idea that I wasn't sure how it was really going to turn out. And like I said, we're a pretty small company, so we have to be kind of careful how we, allocate our whiskey.
For sure. So these two that we just tried are coming. Do we know like a tentative date around when you guys are planning to get both of these out?
Yeah, we're planning on bottling them the end of, this month actually, so end of June. It usually takes a couple weeks for it to hit and get into the markets, get it to our distributors and into the shelves. So my guess is you'll see it somewhere the end of July, most likely, early August.
Okay.
Available, and we're releasing actually six new SKUs. So there's more than just this under the Exploratory Cask line. I just thought I'd highlight two that were pretty wild and out there. Any
teasers? I always like ask at the very end, like, is there anything you guys want to tease coming soon? Is there any other ones that you're excited for, or something you can tell us about them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're releasing Smoke on Water, and some of them we give funny name or great names to. I mean, Smoke on Water is a reference to Deep Purple. But and then some we just name it what the cask was. So Smoke on Water, Funky Drummer. We're doing a Pinot de Charente cask, a Tawny Port cask, Muscatel de Setúbal cask, and then I've also got what else do I got going out right now? Oh, I actually aged some rye in añejo tequila casks. That's pretty wild.
I say "oh wow" as if I didn't see that label on the TTB website earlier. From
yeah, that one's Tres Amigos is what we called it, because it's actually rye that came from our Solera, so it's Solera method, the one we tried first, that is then finished in añejo tequila casks. I had some left over from a bottling, and I happen to have these like great añejo tequila casks that were kind of handed my direction, and I was like, all right, let's give it a try. And actually, it's truly interesting. I think it's really nice, but
yeah, I'm excited for that one. Actually, so the podcast is coming out tomorrow. I kind of went on the TTB website. I think so. Our friend Coming Whiskey, and I kind of talked about like, ooh, this sounds interesting. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that one as well. It sounds really good. I've never had anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody. I'm sure somebody has out there. I couldn't find one. Sometimes I drink various competitors' products. I want to see what they've made and why they did it. It's great. It's a great experience to learn from it. And there's some great products out there. And I did not find one that was done in an tequila cask.
So Swan, I don't know if he'll be able to tell you the tequila it came from. Any hints on like anything? No.
That's actually a big part of like one of the next phases is trying to really get the permission to be able to use other people's names, producers' names. It's just really hard to.
Totally understand.
So if we get like a bunch of maybe, I don't know, platinum awards or something like that.
Well, maybe you guys are relatively small. Like, yeah, you guys are relatively small. Like, you don't want to like burn any bridges or anything, which totally makes sense. Like,
no, not at all. I mean, I think we do pretty good. I think we do justice to most people's casks. I will admit. Subtle humble brag there.
No, you absolutely do. These have all been fantastic tonight.
Thank you. I mean, I'm hoping that one day we can really start disclosing more of that information, because we'd love to. I think that would be an excellent thing to do, especially like I was saying earlier about with the Armagnac cast. I'm hoping to get some really cool producers and spend some time overseas working on matching some great Armagnac to Doc Swinson's bourbon or rye. And then in addition, we are releasing for the first time ever triple cask, Alter Ego triple cask at cask strength.
Ooh.
So we think it's quite excellent. And I also didn't mention this. The triple cask also gets married in foeders, ex-cognac foeders, which I don't know if anybody knows what those are.
I don't know what that is.
They're large, very large barrels.
Okay.
Ours are a little bit bigger than a Mini Cooper in size if you stand them on their tail.
Dang. Okay.
So that adds a really nice time frame for those three different casks to be able to marry together. So all those flavors to be able to really combine and homogenize the way we want it to, without rushing it right into the bottle. So triple cask, when it goes into those foeders, is high proof. It's that 114, 115 proof range. or so, just depending kind of what comes out of the cask. And we're going to release a relatively significant volume of it, actually. And we probably do that maybe once a year, we're thinking, just for the people who are really into the high proof version. And it is quite excellent. So this is what I taste out of the food after I blend it. So you'll get to try that too.
And I imagine that's going to be, because I mean, like I was saying earlier, like it does well at lower proof, but I can't wait to see what it is at cask strength, because I think those finishes are really going to shine on that. And that's definitely what I already told you I'm a fan. I buy pretty much every thing you guys put out. So very, very excited for that. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. This has been a ton of fun. I've learned a lot. I know these guys in the chat have enjoyed it as well. Where can people find you on the web? Or I don't know if you have like socials, or Doc Swinson has socials. Where can people follow you guys to keep up with what's next?
One of these days I'll put like a paper in front of me that actually tells me that. Like I said, I'm the worst millennial ever.
On Instagram, it's Doc. I think it's Doc Swinson's Whiskey.
Doc Swinson's Whiskey on Instagram, I believe. We have a Facebook. I don't really know where else you do it. To be totally honest with you,
that works. Hey, I follow you. I will say I follow Doc Swinson's on Instagram, and they're constantly posting things to their story, and that's where I learned most of my stuff about it. So definitely follow them on Instagram.
Yeah, I think we're definitely most active there. And then there's we'd love it if you sign up for our what we call the Cool Kids Club. It was a joke when I built the website from a long time ago. And now we have like professionals doing that, which are great.
Yeah.
But the Cool Kids Club through docswhiskey.com. Thank you, Emily. If you go there, put your email address in, we'll do shout outs when we're releasing things. So we'll try and get there first, actually. So if you're hunting for some really awesome bottles, definitely sign up for the Cool Kids Club, and you'll see what's going on, what's coming down the pike.
Awesome. I see people are excited. You mentioned the Moscatel finish. I see two people that are both very excited for that. So
yeah,
very cool. And Sugar Kitty says, great stream, great info, and great guest night. I agree with that, Sugar Kitty. So Jesse, thank you again for coming on. I hope to have you on again sometime soon, maybe with some new releases once they start coming down the pipeline. But this has been fun. You guys make sure to go follow them, and stay tuned for more Doc Swinsons to come on the channel.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your night. People, Patreon, I will be on the after party in just a second on Discord. But cheers, y'all, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Clifton.
Yeah, bye, everyone.